Welcome, everyone. This is Pine Leaf Needles, and you're listening to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at the latest news in LOTRO and here at LOTRO Players. And this week we have with us Terry Edwin.
Hi.
And Maven.
Hey, y'all.
And we also have two guests tonight. First, we have Brannick from LOTRO Academy.
Woohoo.
And we have Dreaming Fifi, our resident Elvish expert.
Aia Ili.
So what does that mean?
Hello all.
Great, now I know.
Very well. And we will go more into that later, but we will begin today's show by looking into the first Bulwerer build for Update 21. Mordor. As right on Thursday, we had a little bit of preview on by the devs showing their first steps into there where they're answering some questions. And then on Friday, Bulwerer came up with the very first build that we'll be seeing on the new Mordor expansion. And just remember, of course, at this point, there are a number of things that still are not quite ready yet. So it had only the items that were thought to be in good enough form to be shown to the public.
Right. One of which was the High Elves, because that's not in there. Although there's a spot for it, they currently just look like regular elves.
Yeah, at the point, they just look...
Wait, they're supposed to look different too?
Well, actually, they have a different hair color.
Who can tell?
What?
Who can tell? I did notice that the stances are different for the classes in the character creation screen.
Yeah, that is one of the things that they have there is that the stances, there's a different stance for each of the character classes.
I love that the burglar stands there with their arms folded.
So each of them has their own little pose that they have. So therefore, something iconic in it where you've got the warden standing firm with their sword and their spear and shield. You've got the...
Darn, I was thinking he was going to say spear and magic helmet. Sorry, Piley.
All right. And yes, so therefore you have this character creation screen, and you can see the character creation screen. You can see the High Elves on there. It's just that they're currently locked because they're not ready to unlock. We're hoping that maybe next week's build they'll have them ready so that we could get a real look at them.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And they made it sound like that the High Elves are going to be starting at a location that's not in-game otherwise at this moment.
Yeah, well, the furballs did too.
True.
Yeah, but I want to make sure I wasn't muted. Yeah, but the way they said it was really tantalizing.
Yeah,
because somebody asked, is the starter area for the High Elves going to be an open world or a closed world? And they said, well, it'll be a closed world because it really has to be, or something like that. And they went, oh, no, we're giving spoilers. And I'm like, wait, what? I mean, what would have to be it has to be closed? It has to be a closed world because it has to be a closed world. The only thing I thought of was Valinor because Grey Havens doesn't have to be a closed world.
Right.
Right. Grey Havens wouldn't have to be a closed world.
No.
And also, if you read the text for the High Elf, what it says in there, it makes it, because we were speculating at one point that maybe the High Elves were the first generation children of the ones of the Nodor who came back. But they make it sound like, no, these have been in Valinor.
Huh.
That's what it makes it sound like in the description of the race when you are on the...
They better give a heck of a good reason for coming back.
What?
Yeah, I know. I would say come back.
You see, these sound like Kalakwendi, the light elves, the definition of the light elves.
Yeah, I think that's what they mean. When they said high elves, that they meant the light elves. See, that's what I'm assuming.
So high is equivalent to light?
Well, let's see. It says, I guess I'll leave that to our Elvish expert here.
Light elves refers to the light of the trees, the holy trees that lit up Valinor, and were destroyed by Morgoth and Ungoliant, the evil spider which eats light. So if you were able to see those trees before they vanished, you'd be a light elf. But anyone born after that, or anyone who is in Middle-earth, is not a light elf. They're a dark elf, because they have not seen the holy light of those trees.
Okay, so what does high elf refer to other than those who have partaken in some herbology?
I'm not certain about the game, but usually high elf is like a Noldrine elf or a Sindarin elf that has like contact with the divine at some point.
Like real contact, or like in
real contact,
stone
like
trance?
has met Melian the Maya, who was queen of Doriath,
Okay.
for example.
All right. Anyway, here's the racial info that it says on the character creation screen. High elves who have beheld the beauty of Valinor possess grace and strength beyond even their woodland kin. Those few who remain yearn to see that Middle-earth is safe to bequeath to men before they depart for the undying lands.
I love how it says those few, and we're going to be overrun with them within about 2 days.
Right. So again, why did they if they've beheld Valinor, why did they come back?
Well, that is a long story that's told within the Silmarillion.
Okay,
They wanted their own. They wanted their own kingdoms for a lot of them, like Galadriel.
Yeah, right.
But some other ones were hunting the Silmarils and, killed some Tellarine elves in order to do it. So they were kind of exiled from the Holy Land.
Yeah, that was a bit of a bloody mess. But that's one of the items then that we've got is, of course, the High Elves. The other thing that is available is the level capped increase. So therefore, you're seeing people running above. I reached level 107 myself, and I saw some people probably with the help of the Isengard Tavern who are at 115. Which is
Are you saying they couldn't have gotten that high on their own? I mean, literally, they couldn't have gotten that high?
Not in a short space of time. Not in the few hours it was on.
Yeah, not in a couple of hours. The Isengard Tavern is usual because there were some people who were testing the high-end content going into the resource instances and stuff like that.
I don't know. If the drugs were good enough, they could have got that high.
But bum.
I think I'll let that pass. And we also got to see that they have a new system of light and shadow, where there are some areas where if you stray too far from the roads, it gets really deep in the shadow of Mordor and the monsters become tougher. Not that the monsters in Mordor aren't tough just from the beginning, because they hit hard. If you thought that landscape was too easy, wait till you get into Mordor. That's all I got to say with that.
That makes me worry.
And let's see. And anybody else have anything they wish to add concerning this particular update? This build of the update?
Well, I like to solo. I mean, I don't mind group playing, but I like to solo. It's part of It's part of my relaxation is to go solo. So, doing dailies and picking flowers is not an issue for me because it's relaxing to me.
Right.
This area
This is not going to be picking
not no, it's not going to be picking flowers, but I don't even see myself enjoying it solo. Any piece of it solo. Now I didn't get very far into it. I was only in for a little while, but it's intense. It's really
You'll
intense.
probably be fine once you have
Brutal
air.
is the word.
No, it's not that. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, I'm geared up fine. I can kill those. I mean, I didn't have any problem killing stuff, but it's just really intense. Now, the epic story is not included. So, the epic, I'm sure I'll enjoy the epic story. But as far as the landscape stuff, I think I'm going to want to quest with people to do this area. It's just not an area that I can see myself soloing. But, who knows when I get further in. So far, I'm not thrilled. I mean, it's not that I'm not thrilled with Mordor. I think it's very Mordor-y. It's just, it's like I told somebody, it's like Moria on steroids. I mean, Arathert said before on an earlier, show a while back, that he would have to take breaks from Moria and go to the Shire ever so often just to kind of get, green grass and blue sky. And this is definitely like that. I mean, I could definitely see me saying, oh my gosh, get me out of here. I just need a break because it is really intense. But I'm sure the stories are going to be great. And I think, once I get into the game mechanics, like what Pineleaf was saying about the shadow as you get further off the path and, get into the instances and stuff, I'm sure I'll enjoy the gameplay. But I still think it's probably going to be more fun to do Mordor with people and not solo. Not, there's plenty of other stuff I can do solo, so I'm not worried about that. But that's a change for me in terms of, every place else in the game. It's not a bad thing. I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying.
On one does not simply walk into Mordor. You want two
alone. One does not simply walk into Mordor alone. Yes, right.
Is that still a thing on Google Maps?
I think so.
I mean, it used to be one of the coolest things on Google Maps. I don't know if it's still possible.
I think it is. But that's a bit off topic.
All right. Now, the other thing to note is, as someone mentioned before, the epic storyline is not going to be part of this. That'll be book 9, and they haven't said that this is they said they'll be taking a break on the epic storyline after this. I'm presuming it's also going to close up volume 4, and when they do get around to resuming it at a later update, it'll probably be, I suspect, start volume 5. But they are going to be starting a new series called The Black Book. And the Black
Mordor. The Black Book of Mordor.
Yeah, Black Book of Mordor, and that's going to be the main storyline going through Mordor.
Okay. The of Mordor means a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, just Black Book by itself is like a prostitute's address book.
But bum.
Anyone have anything useful to add to this before we go on?
Isn't the Black Book of Mordor, isn't that like epic Russian fanfic, Silmarillion fanfic that was like
that's
from
a good question.
Sauron's point of view?
Like
I might want to read that.
No, that book is called The Last Ring Bearer. It's actually fairly entertaining. It's not. It was a apocryphal sort of look at things from Sauron's, not necessarily Sauron's point of view, but the point of view of the other side, basically. It was an interesting read.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That sounds like it would have been. I hadn't heard of that, though. I once jokingly said, what about the story from Sauron's point of view to a professor in college, and he said, you can just imagine this. Those rebels are taking the ring from me.
Yeah. He would cast himself definitely as the good guy.
Yeah, of course. let's then head into the LOTRO Beacon. And this week on the Community Spotlight, there was an announcement that Shirefest 2017 was a big success. So congratulations to everybody over at Shirefest on that.
Yes, and of course they mentioned our last week's episode about Well-Dressed Killing Machine.
Yes.
Oh, did they?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the first line under Fansite News. LOTRO Players News is a well-dressed killing machine.
It was a
In
great
episode
title.
207. It was a fantastic
awesome.
title.
We're actually
So-
going to have we're going to have a part 2 at some point because we're going to have another well-dressed killing machine to join Terry.
Yeah.
To talk about that stuff.
Yeah,
Stay
it's still
tuned.
the most accurate description of my character that I've ever heard.
Yes, I agree.
All right.
I mean, I'm not surprised.
Now, here's the weekly comment. What would your character do differently if he or she knew someone was watching them all the time?
Well, my character is an elf, so there is somebody watching her all the time.
Fart less.
Now, that's the problem is that since I do YouTube stuff, I pretty much do have people watching some of my characters all the time.
Right.
Well, I can tell you my elf wouldn't do anything different because she's very tightly wound, Glardriel is. She holds herself to an possibly ridiculous standard, so she's just really stiff.
Yeah.
Her sister Erethin just is not. She thinks Glardriel's like way too uptight.
Yeah.
So she would be the same.
Yeah. I was just thinking about how what if Sarissa would do anything differently.
No, because she spends most of the time in the game running around in stealth anyway, because she assumes that there's always somebody watching, so the burglar's always in stealth. That's just like the paranoid mindset that the burglar gets.
Yeah.
Is you always assume that somebody's watching. So if you're
That's
not,
a very good point. Like
You're
that
not
should
in
be the way a burglar thinks.
yeah, I mean, if you're not in the middle of killing something where you can't really be in stealth, then you're in stealth, ready to go kill the next thing, or pick somebody's pocket, or find the treasure, or whatever. I mean, her character basically developed because she assumed that people were watching all the time.
I guess because I'm a mischief maker that I'm less worried about people watching because I figure part of the mischief is having people laugh.
Well,
or
plus
something
you're
like
a
that.
hobbit, I mean, hobbits just don't strike me as like they would be the same regardless, right? I mean,
Yeah, hobbits are kind of like, I don't care if anybody's watching, I'm not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you got a point there.
But honestly, most of my characters, I can't imagine them doing anything differently if they thought somebody was watching all the time, because I get this mental image in my head of how my character should act, and that's generally how they act.
I think my captain would probably strut a little more. He's not like
they really need a strut emote for the male captain.
They do.
That would
they
be
do.
cool.
They do.
Wait,
he's not egotistical.
Why the male?
But
Why
I think
not female?
He would be pleased. Well,
probably
both
the female
actually.
captain too. But I mean,
but it should look a little bit different. I mean, they should.
Well,
they should
yeah.
look a little bit. Now, Fabulous, my champion dwarf, is convinced everybody's watching him anyway. So he's just fabulous. He's his long,
why would they not
golden
be?
locks. Exactly. Yeah. He can't imagine why. He's convinced when he walks down the street, everybody's turn. He's a head turner.
Yeah, Ashley's kind of the same way.
Is he the same way? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I'm awesome. Look at me. Look at these guns. You wish your arms could look this good.
That's right. Now
Gunskin
Reckless
says I'd stop wearing pants.
Reckless, who is Marvelous's brother, he's a dwarf that doesn't care if everybody's. It's like he doesn't care, but it's in a different way than hobbits don't care. I mean, he belligerently doesn't care whether people are looking at him or not, and he thinks Marvelous is just such a sissy boy he can't hardly stand it. Don't you love how we've really thought this through?
We have.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing about having a lot of alts, at least I know their backstories, right? Terry knows her backstories too.
Yeah, I mean, even if I don't necessarily know a full backstory, I have some
Right.
idea of what the character is.
Exactly. Yeah.
For our screenshot of the week, Jogo has a picture of a numinous here.
Which is really great. It's like
Yeah.
this purpley sky.
It's amazing how when you're far distance off, it looks a lot less wrecked than when you're up close.
That's true. Although you can still kind of see the orc camp tents pitched all over the place.
Yeah, there is that spoils it a little bit. We'll have to deal with that someday.
Part of the cleanup later.
Yeah, part of the cleanup later. Let's see what's on sale this week. Terry.
Well, I'm going to tell you what the free sample is, and then I'm going to tell you not to get it. This week's free sample is a yellow dye with the coupon code MORSAL.
She actually said it without gagging. I'm amazed.
Yeah. Well, because I told everybody not to get it, so just disregard what I just said.
That's hilarious.
Don't get it. Also, 25% off some other stuff that I don't spend LOTRO points on. So, Virtues and Virtue Bundles, Trait Slots, and Skill and Slayer Deed Boosts.
All right. And LOTRO Players News is brought to us this week by Dreaming Fifi's A Fan's Guide to Neo Sindarin, a textbook for the Elvish of Middle-earth.
Yep. I wrote a book.
Yay!
It's a textbook and reference grammar for Neo-Sindarin. And Neo-Sindarin is the language as it has grown in the fan community, not just what Tolkien made. But I very carefully marked throughout the book what was Tolkien and what was fans.
Right.
So all of the translations in the Lord of the Rings movies and book and The Hobbit and in the game, if it's not a direct quote of from Tolkien, then it'll be Neo-Sindarin or Neo-Quenya if it's in Quenya.
Now, concerning Neo-Sindarin, maybe I'll get close to it by the end of the show. How full is the language? Is it something that you can now communicate fully in, or are there still some significant holes in the grammar and lexicon, or what?
Yeah, there's still some holes, but it's a lot easier to communicate in it now than it was like a decade ago, for example. There's been a whole bunch of publications since the Lord of the Rings movies came out, right, because they brought up a lot more interest in it. Publications of Tolkien's notes on his languages in the fanzines Parma El de Lambron and Vinyar Tangwar. So because of those, we've gotten like tons and tons of new information. Things like how elves count on their fingers. One of them
on their fingers.
Yeah, how they count on their fingers. Tolkien actually wrote a whole essay about how elves count on their fingers and all the words for hands.
Does that mean that they're bad at math? That they have to use their fingers to count?
Well, they counted 12 on their fingers. It's kind of cool.
I mean, what? I can count to 100 on mine.
I did. I thought that they had a duodecimal system in there, so I was wondering how you managed that if you're counting with your fingers.
The essay is called Eldarine Hands, Fingers, and Numerals.
Okay.
So yeah, he did a whole essay on that, and I included the information from that in my book.
Okay.
And there's also been Parma El de Lambro number 17 is another one of the really big publications that's happened since the Lord of the Rings movies came out. That contains words, phrases, and passages from the Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. This was a draft of what became the language appendix in Return of the King, but he ended up dropping it because it was just taking way too long, and it was taking too long, and it was getting too long. to include in the book. So they got a hold of the unfinished manuscript and put it together and published it in this tome. And that wasn't published until, I think, 2005, I think. No, 2007, sorry. So we have a whole bunch of new information. Most of the books about Sindarin are outdated. Even the really good A Gateway to Sindarin by David Salo, who did the translations for the movies, is now outdated because of all these publications. But his book is still really good, though, but it is outdated because of that. So my book is up to date.
Whee!
That's kind of cool.
Yep. I include like a whole bunch of the world building stuff that Tolkien built. So there's sections on things like how to talk about your feelings, because Tolkien wrote a short thing about how the elves perceive emotions and how they organize them. And also what their cosmology is like, because the elves believe that there is an ocean of water above their heads, and you can actually sail on this ocean of water up in the sky, and in that ocean is floating like these crystals, which are stars. So all that sort of information to sort of flesh out role-playing and fan fiction writing.
So they really are high elves.
Not very many. There's like Earendia. He's actually sailing on that ocean.
Yeah, it's quite literally, yes.
But he's not an elf.
He's half elf.
Earendel?
Yeah. He's got a little bit of elf and a little bit of human. And I think his wife is with him too. Which is
part-time when she's a swan.
Elwing, which is Elrond's mother, actually.
She lives on land when she's a human, and she flies to him when she's a swan.
Elwing is an elf.
She actually has human in her from Tuor.
Yeah, Tuor and Idril.
Right, Amy.
Yep, I still don't want to roleplay an elf.
Yeah, really.
Anybody who's interested,
make your high elf your storage character. That'll show him.
I already used the name storage, though. No, but for anybody,
find out what the Syndrome name is for storage and call him that.
Don't tell me now, because I don't want anybody to take it. But that's a thought. No, but for anybody who is interested in learning more about Sindarin and Elvish in general, I will toss the link in the Mixler chat, and it will also be in the show notes for where you can check the book out.
Yeah. The URL is pretty easy to remember, though. It's realelvish.net/store. And you can find it as an ebook, as a paperback, and as a hardcover.
And of course, it's also available from other sources, such as Amazon and the like.
Yeah, I believe it's also findable on Barnes & Noble.
Right. Anything else you wish to add to it before we go on?
Do you want to hear some Elvish?
Yes, that would be perfect.
All right. How about some battle cries? I was thinking, our enemies flee from us like a shadow flees from sunlight. I go thwyn drego gwen swi wath drego glawar.
That doesn't sound at all intimidating.
Yeah, the dwarves have really mastered
Bird
intimidating.
Kazad!
And there's also we fight for vengeance. Maithan an acharn.
Maithan Acharn. Well,
An acharn.
I can't imagine trying to get that out in the heat of battle. I just can't.
Well, but they have thousands of years to practice it.
This is true.
So, are you fluent in Elvish then, or in Sindarin?
About as fluent as you can get. In fact, I did like a whole ad for my book entirely in Sindarin. That was a lot of fun.
How well do you know Quenya?
Not as well as I know Sindarin, but still pretty well. I regularly am involved in Quenya Chat, which is a group on Facebook, and we just chat entirely in Quenya, or you're supposed to. Occasionally a noob comes in and doesn't know what they're doing. Like, tries to post in English, but yeah, we write and have conversations entirely in Quenya there. And I did all the translations for my Quenya phrase book on my website.
If I gave you a phrase in English, could you translate it into Sindarin?
Yeah.
Could you translate, "Lowly adventurer, could you perform this task for me? I'm far too important."
So lowly adventurer?
Yes.
Yeah. Lowly adventurer, could you perform this task for me? I'm far too important.
See, there isn't really a word for adventure in
Adventurer,
Sindarin.
yes.
Yeah. But we could go about it a different way, like maybe wanderer.
Wanderer, traveler.
Well, that's what they sometimes call us. They sometimes say Sheila Randir to us when we enter the area. So, or at least that's how in the game they translate wanderer.
Yeah, Randir is masculine.
Yes.
There's a gender neutral version that we can go with, which is Ranor. So, hello, wanderer, lowly wanderer. So, I, Ranor Fag. What was the last part?
Could you perform this task for me? I'm far too important.
Which pretty much breaks down like every NPC request in the game.
Yes.
Exactly.
All right. Let's see. The way you say, could you please do something, do
Oh, come on. They
fill in
wouldn't
the
say
blank
please.
is the suffix atha. So
Sometimes they say please.
see, are they being like really, really rude, or is it slightly stiff and formal?
Most of the elves are really rude.
Okay, got
and
it.
stiff and formal.
I mean, if they're considering themselves to be too important, so they're asking you to do it, obviously they're being rude about it.
Okay. So. Okay, it is Ranor Faeg Karathog Idas Hen Annin. So, Karathog means would you please do, but the you I used is like a really like talking down to someone, talking to either your equal or your lower. So,
That
like,
sounds about right.
yeah.
All right. So it's for like a if you're talking about a romantic language, more like a tu than an usted. If you're familiar with romance languages.
Yeah. Like in French, using tu instead of vous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like in early modern English, using thee or thou instead of you.
Right.
So yeah, it's kind of rude, like rude version of you.
Yeah, I didn't know if does it also have the context of, does it only have the talking down context, or does it also have such as with the potential that you'd use it with a close friend also, or is it?
Yeah, you'd use it with a close friend.
Okay.
The way that this is divided is like a really close, intimate relationship versus a slightly distant, formal relationship. And if you treat somebody who you should have a slightly distant relationship with the really familiar speech, then that really close speech, it would be like you started cussing at a stranger. That's roughly what it's equal to in English.
Okay, yeah, then. Okay, yeah, so pretty much the same thing then. Okay, got it.
Yeah. And if you use like the really distant formal speech with somebody who you should be using the really close familiar speech with, that would be like saying you're not my friend anymore. So both can be insulting depending on the context.
So be extremely careful with your sarcasm.
I'm not certain that the elves have the concept of sarcasm.
Interesting.
That seems to be an English speaker's joke. Like a lot of my foreign friends don't get sarcasm at all.
Ooh. Well, that's interesting. I had always thought that would have been be wider than English.
Snark was universal, yeah.
Oh, snark, I think, is universal, but it takes different forms in different languages and cultures.
Fair enough.
All right. And apparently with elves, snark takes the form of condescending.
Well, that makes sense, right?
There's also a suffix that you can use, like you can stick it on someone's name or on an adjective, and it means like little, like my little. And they use that for the dwarves a lot, actually.
so
like,
what is this
one
suffix?
Of the words
Because
for,
I kind of want to name my characters this suffix.
The suffix takes several different forms depending on what's in front of it. It's either ed, egg, eg, od, or og. So, like the word for dwarf now, it's already quite insulting because now means short or stunted. But when you add the diminutive suffix onto it, it becomes noged, which is like even little tiny person.
Who is short and stunted.
Yeah. A little short stunted person.
That's fantastic.
So that's a good way to get a dwarf to try to punch your teeth in.
Yes, apparently so. So Sindarin is a very highly inflected language based on what you're saying here. There seem to be cases upon cases upon cases, almost like Hungarian or something like that.
No, that would be Quenya. Sindarin is an inflectional, isolating language, much closer to like Middle English or French. It's not quite as far as like modern English is, right. But it doesn't have very many cases.
Oh, okay.
Mostly it's done through prepositions.
Mostly done through prepositions.
Yeah. In Quenya, though, you have like a ton of different cases. And Each of those cases has like a singular, a plural, and a dual plural form, and they interact with the ends of words different ways. So, yeah. It's super complex in Quenya, but in Sindarin, it's a lot closer to English that way.
All right. Okay. Let's then head into our site news, and we'll begin with the community events calendar for June 23rd through the 29th. And does anyone have something here that they wish to shout out?
No, but the week after that is Knights of the White Lady doing their annual party on the 8th of July.
And I presume this must be a pretty old kinship if they're calling this year's party the Decadence.
Yep.
So congratulations on 10 years of being
yeah, exactly. I don't know anything about the Ken, but I'm guessing 10 years based on what you just said.
Yeah, 10th anniversary.
Yeah, 10th anniversary.
That's, in and of itself, that's worth congratulations for sure.
Yeah. Because there are, I don't know how many of the active Kins have been around since launch, because
probably not that many.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I do occasionally hear of one where they formed the kinship even before launch, because as soon as the servers came up, I think open beta was on the main servers or something like that. So there are a few of them that probably were founded almost immediately after that. How many of them are still active, of course?
Yeah, exactly. Like most of those Kins that would have been created at that time are not going to still be around. Even if they were, like large Kins in their day, like it's rare for any, online group of gamers to just last that long. So that is worth congratulations for sure.
Quite so.
And it's not mentioned in here, but it's, it's sort of mentioned. There are just under 3 weeks left in the scavenger hunt, so make sure you get those done. July 13th is the last day.
Right.
I think Summerfest starts this week.
Oh, yeah, and that'll be quite a distraction on the matter.
I think that was the 27th.
Yeah, I think that is the plan on the matter, because it was supposed to start in.
Did you say 27?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I was just curious. That is a number of some power.
Yeah,
we're not going to go there. We're not going there.
Yes. Then let's head on to our next item is, where do you want new housing? This was a question posed by Andang, where he was doing one of his videos on.
I thought we did this last week, but apparently it was posted on Sunday. So,
yeah, last week we had a different question for him on the favorite skirmish.
I could have sworn we talked about the housing thing. Anyway, I know where it was. It was in the Beacon last week. That's why it sounds familiar. It was the comment in last week's Beacon.
Ah, yes, of course, yes.
So, again, noting that as with all of Andang's videos, the actual discussion is on the video page on YouTube. But yeah, we answered this question last week, because we talked about it when we talked about the Beacon.
Right.
Well, I didn't answer it, and I would like a house in Evendon, please.
Any particular place in Evendon?
Somewhere near the lake, because it'd be a fantastic
I think that'd be a great
view.
place. Yeah, we did talk about this last week, because I said Dal Amroth.
Yeah, because we talked about Dal Amroth housing that doesn't look like a bank vault.
Right.
Yeah.
And I said it could even be a studio apartment. I'm not picky.
Right.
All right. All right. Fifi,
How
do
about
you have an answer for that?
Well, I don't really play the game, so
Ah,
I don't know. Like, I think the nicest place to live in Middle Earth would be Rivendell. Just because that just looks gorgeous. It
housing in
sounds
Rivendell
beautiful.
would be pretty cool too. It really would.
housing in Rivendell would be pretty awesome, but I'm pretty sure that Elrond's the only one allowed to have a house there.
Oh, that's the biggest drawback. He'd be so close to Elrond. He'd be asking you to do all his crap.
Well, he
I
already
suppose
does.
Elrond does have like the last homely house there already, so yeah,
so
like
we
a
have
competing
the penultimate
the mountains.
only houses.
Plus, in the game, there's so many people coming through. Oh my God, it's like a Grand Central Station.
No kidding.
Should be able to do like trade and stuff there easily, right?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, there's a whole marketplace there.
Now, I have a video response that is going to be posted tonight to this particular question, and I do give I forgot what I said last week, but this time I was talking about the Hootbold, which is one of the places we discussed last week. But I also decided to add to that wait a couple of 100 years, and this place you're in will be a fertile field from all the rich soil created by the volcanic ash. I was thinking a couple 100 years after, Mordor might actually turn into a decent place. And maybe even prime real estate
farmland.
if the volcano's not threatening to blow up on you.
Right.
So therefore, I was saying that a nice housing area for the far future. Yes. Because right now, of course, it looks because I was looking
when
at
someone
Mount
asks
Doom
you
as I
where
was
you want
saying
your
that.
house, your answer is Mordor.
Well, I was saying, I was standing in Mordor at the time when they're looking at Mount Doom.
And
It's
that
like
made you wanna
Mordor in
help.
the 5th age, maybe.
Well, I would say maybe a couple centuries into the 4th age, it might start to, maybe during the time of Aragorn's son or something like that, they might have most of the rabble cleared up. And that the volcanic fumes might have simmered down to an acceptable level.
Yeah, you could go there during the winter, right? You could winter in Mordor. So you'd be warm.
I'll stick with Evandom myself.
Speaking of Mordor, we have a couple articles on what's behind Mordor number 1 and what's behind Mordor number 2.
Yes, these are wrap-up articles from Squirrel, who is better known for Critters, but it talks about what we've got coming with Mordor. In case you've missed some of the other press about what's coming in Mordor, this is a good couple of articles to read.
Yes, and I ran into Squirrel today who was, let us just say, in Mordor, I suspect preparing for other things that he'll be posting in the near future.
That's a safe bet.
Yes. So he goes into the revamps of the models, which are not ready yet. And
Right.
the revamps are going to, and most likely when Mordor gets shipped, only have the men and elves parts of the revamp anyway. And of course, we were expecting the high elf, the level cap increase, which he was wondering how many levels, and of course, it's 115 is the answer we received this week.
And the second article talks about the rating system update. Which I have more comments about later.
Oh, about the rating system update?
Uh-huh.
All right, we'll get into that in a moment then. But next we have the Family Line Part 140 to Ered Luin. We're at Part 140. He's just reaching Ered Luin.
Well, the story obviously that the family line story is going in a different direction than the
Yeah,
actual
I
game
know.
story.
Yes. Yeah. In a couple of months, he'll reach the Shire, right?
Although, actually, if you're following the epic story, you're somewhere in the middle of the story. They do actually send you to Ered Luin, to Thorin's Hall, and then later they send you to Calandam. And it's like, we're doing level 50 stuff, and you're sending me back to a starter area. Why?
Because Moria's not out yet, and we need to send you everywhere.
Basically.
Yeah, that's typical.
So yeah, I can get behind going to Ered Luin. Plus, there's really pretty screenshots, which is par for the course for Family Line.
That's true. And also, we have another installment of Poems of the Pine, the March of the King. Our rest was brief when the battle was done, as the hail must heal the hurts of the wounded. The captains took counsel on the course to take, and chose to march and challenge our foe. We sounded the trumpets as our troops set forth into Gondor's glorious garden Ithilien. There we marched to the north towards the menacing gates, till Cirith Negin came within sight. There were scouts espied some scurrying foes who set an ambush along the sides of the pass. We snuck behind with a silent cry to break the ambush that blocked our way. At the edge of the waste our worries did grow, so we sent a scout to survey. Sauron wants us to arrive to a sable gate, for he's prepared a plan for us.
So that's one more poem, right? Before Mordor comes out?
One more poem before Mordor comes out, that's right.
You know, it's really hard to snap or clap with push to talk.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
And I expect that the next episode will come out next week. And therefore, it is time to head into our week in LOTRO. And Maven, what were you up to?
Well, I casually strode into Mordor with Pineleaf's help.
Okay.
Is that
I could not-
with the trademark or without?
I don't know. Probably with it. He was great. He found where Aragorn was standing in the Slag Hills and went to the battle and found the guy with the ring. And I'm riding all over the Slag Hills trying to find Aragorn. Can't find him. Go to the Black Gate. The Black Gate is shut. You know, I'm starting to panic and get really annoyed. And Pineleaf's like, I'll come back out. I'll come back out. And as Pineleaf was coming back out, I discovered that actually you could ride right through the gate. It's permeable. You just ride right through the Black Gate. It was kind of amazing. So I joined Pineleaf for some of the front end just for a little bit because I had to go, but do some of the quests and discovered how mighty the mobs are. I mean, even in terms of size, the slugs are huge. They're relatives of the slugs you see in Osgiliath and in the resource instances in the Slag Hills, but oh my goodness, they're enormous. And the marsh lurkers, huge. They still count for herbalism quests. Was like, well, that's interesting. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know if it was my imagination or not, but the mobs did seem tougher. Well, they were all, I think, 106 first of all.
Well, they're 106, and yes, the baseline morale of mobs at 106 is twice that of mobs at 105.
No, I didn't even notice that.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa, okay. Well, fortunately, Glordrell is pretty buffed out, so she did pretty good. I mean, so, I feel okay, like, starting out, I'm okay. I'm geared up okay, so I won't die too much. But this whole thing about, leaving the path and stuff, I mean, that's going to be really interesting. So anyway, so that was... I don't know if I'll go back this weekend, but I'll certainly be going back into Bullroar. They said that they're going to probably release, do more iterations. Well, they will certainly do more iterations.
Well, they definitely have to do more iterations so that we could see
the
rest of the stuff that's coming.
Right. Things like TBD Dwarf. That's actually over the head of this thing is TBD.
Yeah,
enraged dwarf or something like that. It was funny.
was interesting when in going there, and at first I was wondering whether the dwarves were really dwarves or placeholders. I did eventually find out in the context of some of the quests that a lot of the stuff you're running into are the slaves
Ah,
that are being kept in there, and that there are
Right.
3 factions of slaves: the orc slaves, the dwarf slaves, and the Nern slaves.
right.
And so those are the 3 main factions of slaves that you have in there, and some of them are, I guess, because of the chaos in the area, are a little bit
Frenzied.
feisty, shall you see? Frenzied is the way to put it on something like that. And you could imagine having been enslaved in Mordor, some of them for generations. That
Yeah, they're pretty frenzied.
Yeah,
Plus, it
they're
was kind
pretty
of interesting. Instead of Crabine, we actually have we have Gore Crows, and they actually even look different. That was kind of a nice change. So anyway, so that was interesting. And the map, good Lord, when you pull up the map, it's just really like, whoa.
Well, it's not
serious.
Well, it still has a little work to be done in order to.
I know.
Yeah.
This is my week in Lotro.
Okay,
Kind
sorry.
So my week in Lotro, I was like, whoa, the map. But you're right, they do still have a little work. But I think it'll still be pretty intense, even when they fix it. So I went out with our buddy Colton. Hi, Colton, and Sanswinda to kill the spider RT, the roving threat in the waste. And of course, those of you that know Sanswinda know we didn't actually specifically go looking for the spider. We went looking for roving threats. We happened to run across the spider, and it was one that the 3 of us could kill, so we did it. And I discovered how not to have Sanswinda make gagging noises while killing spiders is to have her be on her war steed, because she's so busy concentrating on riding her war steed, she didn't have time to make gagging sounds. And I mean, the spider has little babies and stuff too, so I mean, it's definitely like, gag worthy of giving her dislike of spiders. So anyway, that was really fun. She did gag one time when she was getting pulled underneath the mama spider, but that's excusable. And then thanks to Terry, I can now take Lotro with me wherever I go. Today on Twitter, I happened to notice that Terry brought to our attention the fact that Chance Thomas Lotro 10th anniversary music is now on iTunes. So I immediately downloaded it. I've been listening to it all day today, and it's wonderful. So I can listen to it. I could go to the Shire in my car. I can go fight war bands in my car. That's, not literally. So yeah, it's great. And the music is really good. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's just really good. It's really awesome. So anyway, so
yeah, it's strange.
and I noticed she didn't put it on here. Let's see. I didn't put it on here, so I got to tell you, today is Terry's birthday, and we happened to be questing when her birthday hit, right at midnight, and Colton was with us also, and he sent her a loot box, and she opened it, and Terry actually got a pony for her birthday. I mean, isn't that something that we all want? She actually got a pony for her birthday. she got a pick amount out of the loot box. It was awesome. I'm like, oh my God, she got a pony for her birthday.
Oh,
so anyway, I just had to say that. That was awesome.
I went with the blue Rowan steed.
That's a nice one. Yeah.
Because it's on Terry Adwin. She already has the red skeleton horse.
Okay. And then she also had some other great stuff happen on her birthday, but she's going to talk about that during her week in Lotro. So Terry, tell us about your week in Lotro.
Well, most of my week in Lotro didn't happen on my birthday because I did other stuff today. But I got Bull Roar updated and Terry copied over just in time to not actually do anything on Bull Roar. I keep in mind you can copy all of your shared stuff over to Bull Roar. So like all of your wardrobes from all of the different if you play on multiple servers, you can copy all the wardrobes over. So I did all of that, and I had 202 of 140 slots full in my wardrobe. So that was fun. And then I went through and sorted out and got rid of all of the stuff that normally I keep in my bags for later, whatever, be it like equipment stuff that I might use later or essences that might get some use. I'm like, I'm not going to use any of that in beta, so I can just chuck all of that. So I freed up all kinds of bag space. And then took the milestone that she had set at Herondir, and then I had to go do something else. So, and the something else turned out to be ran part of the Throne of Dread Terror with some of the Ploy folks, which is Colton's kinship. We got through the first boss just fine, which is the troll, which I've done that fight before. It's not really all that hard. I died, but so did one other person, so I didn't feel too bad about being one of the people who died. Because honestly, the troll does damage that is basically dispersed to whoever's close to him, and we had some people who were backing up away from the troll that probably should have been closer to the troll because they could have taken some of the damage. And so, yeah, he kind of smacked me. But then we got to the Mumox and we hit a wall, and we wiped about a half a dozen times on the Mumox. At one point, they actually made me target assist, and I said we were in trouble. But it turns out that I can be target assistant even when I'm dead. I was dead through about 5 minutes of one of those fights, and I was still picking targets. Yeah.
Oh, that was interesting.
That's one word for it.
That's useful to know for anybody who,
Well, if you have somebody who's really good at picking targets, it is possible to pick out targets when you're dead. You basically just tap through until you get the right target. And then if you happen to be one of the people in target assist, you can say, well, my target, and then everybody can click on it. That's how target assist works. And then to make up for the fact that was not a real fun time, Colton came with Maven and I to do a couple of skirmishes, which, so prior to doing that, I had 4 of 8 complete for Battle of the 21st Hall, and I managed to tick off 2 more encounters on my to-do list. So I am now only 2 encounters away from Skirmisher of Middle-earth.
And that was her other cool birthday thing.
That was my other cool birthday thing. Yep. So, Brannick, what were you up to this week?
Well, I didn't play a lot of LOTRO, which should be kind of obvious, I guess, if any of you actually know who I am and have been paying attention to anything I've said in like the last several months, because I don't have the opportunity to play LOTRO a lot anymore. But during the field trip yesterday, I had a pretty cool experience. So, first of all, you have to understand, I was absolutely exhausted. I'd had less than an hour of sleep the night before. And less than an hour of sleep the night before that. So, my main goal is I'm here to be on Discord and chatting with people in the kin. And I'm in game because, that's kind of my responsibility as a kin leader. And this is one of the few weeks lately that I actually can be. But I do not want to do anything at all that takes any thought whatsoever. So I happen to log in, and first I'm surprised because I happen to be standing by Tom Bombadil's house. I'm like, why am I here? Oh, right, the cover art for the last LOTRO Academy episode. That's right. But I don't know what to do. So I just start walking, right? And I'm like, I'll figure out something to do. I'll just walk around and, talk on Discord and figure something out. Meanwhile, I'm just walking around. So I walk towards Bree, and I get to Bree, and I get by the boar fountain. And I'm like, I'm kind of liking walking around here. I always forget how beautiful this game looks with all the settings up, and I remember how good it looks in the later areas, but it's so hard to remember how good it looked way back in the day when, in the older areas. So I just decided to go for a stroll, right? I decided to walk from Bree by the fountain where I realized this, technically from Tom Bombadil's house where I started, but I kind of made the decision by the boar fountain in Bree to just walk to the Misty Mountains, which is where the quest that I was going to do for Bingo Boffin, the next quest was, right? So I'm just going to walk there and not run, right? I hit the insert key and I am walking. It's more than an hour and a half for me to get there. So I'm just walking and I'm looking around and I'm taking in the sights and everything's great. And half of me is just concentrating on talking with people in Discord, and that's great. But half of me is like, man, people don't slow down to take a look at the scenery this much that often. And it looks really good. It really does. But by the time I get to the Lone Lands, things change a little bit for the better. because all of a sudden I start running into other people who don't know what I'm doing. They just see like this weird guy who like, I'm level 104 and I've got like my nice armor on, so I just look like this fancy dude who's all dressed up in his nice armor, just slowly walking through the Lone Lands, right? And all of a sudden, like, people are walking behind me. Just like, nobody says anything. Like, I salute a couple people I pass and some people, like, slash wave and whatnot. Nobody says anything at all in chat. But all of a sudden, there's a couple of people, like, just following behind me to see where I might be going. You know? It's like 15 or 20 minutes go by, and I come across this other guy in the Lone Lands. Like, I'm not even... out of the Lone Lands yet. I'm getting towards the end. And I come across this guy who's just like fighting stuff in the Lone Lands, like near the road. And I notice he's fighting a lot of things. Like, I don't know if he's doing deeds or whatever, but obviously I have a time to watch him a while because I'm just walking, right? I'm really slow. So I'm just like sort of like turning my camera and watching what he's doing for a while. And then I turn the camera again, like to see where I'm going. And I notice that I'm walking right up to a warg that's just sitting on the side of the road, like literally inches from where I'm about to step. So I stop walking, I target this warg, and I slash pat to pat it on the head, and just walk off. And this dude that's like killing stuff all around me had to have been so confused. But I keep walking, and eventually I ended up making it to the Misty Mountains, and I, target and pat other things on the head along the way just because it was fun. I had realized how much fun it was, so I found a bear that I passed by in troll shaws and targeted it and patted it on the head, and then I stopped and I said in Say Chat that you, sir, are overpowered, and then I kept on walking. But the guy that I had talked to back in the Lone Lands sent me a tell after a while, just like, so what exactly are you doing? And I just said, I'm really tired today. I don't want to do anything that, actually takes thought. I'm just walking to the Misty Mountains. And he replied with a smiley face and said, have fun on your adventure. So I did. And that was what I did in LOTRO.
All right. Now, one of the things that reminded me of was a tradition that we had back a few years ago where I think Casual Stroll to Mordor started it, where we would have the annual walk to, I think it was...
The Fellowship Walk?
Yeah, the Fellowship Walk.
Oh, that was fantastic. I remember doing that. We used to get together with Mist, and everybody in the Academy would do that too. That was fantastic.
Right. And now I'll go into what I did, and I'll begin with I participated in the Massacre of Minstrels in a Dragok raid.
The Massacre of Minstrels?
Yeah.
I saw this in the notes, and I don't know what this is. What is the Massacre of Minstrels?
This was a Dragok raid. I believe there were 4 minstrels in this raid. I know that Terry was one, I was one, and I think there were 2 others. And there was
I was one, but I didn't die. But I think, I can't remember who. There was definitely at least another one. Oh, Saganoth was there. Logros minstrel.
Yeah.
So what happened is that when we went from Phase 1 to Phase 2, there was a lot of confusion there because we weren't expecting Phase 2 to come up so quickly. Therefore, when Phase 2 started, I think there was a change in plan on what we had to do, and I lost contact with the raid leader. And, of course, when you lose contact with the raid leader and Dragok, you're in the wrong place when Dragok yells at something and you get yourself killed very quickly.
Oh, no. I started that.
I know. You started. That's right. Yeah,
I know exactly how that happened because I wasn't expecting the dragon to move yet and didn't realize that the dragon was going to move in the opposite direction of where I needed to go. So you don't really want your main healer of the tank to be movement challenged.
Yeah.
And they called right, and I was way far to the left. And so by the time I started moving to the right, I got roasted. So they called Pine Leaf up to come res me, and it just kind of devolved from there. And we had there was a whole cascade of dead healers.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was Massacre
And
1.
I was describing for that.
Yeah, that was Massacre 1. I was describing Massacre 2.
Oh, Massacre 2.
Oh,
yeah.
At one point, Corey said there's this path of minstrels, like dead minstrels,
right.
like landmarks.
Yeah, because once you died because once someone died on Massacre 2, we were not able, the minstrels that were down were gone for the rest of the raid. So therefore we finished off the raid with, well, I suppose that if...
No, we had to get out and race that.
No, that was after... No, not after the... That was after the cascade from Minstrel Massacre 1. But Minstrel Massacre 2, that was not reset. They continued on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it all continued on.
I think you were in the other group, and when I'm in a raid, I try to only look at the group that I'm in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, too much stuff on my screen.
Well, I had nothing else to do, so I was trying to count the number of minstrels that were sitting down with defeated under their name. So therefore, this was the first time I was ever in a successful Dragok raid. And
so close to the challenge.
It was probably, but we may say it was successful because I was incapacitated during the second phase.
You still got credit for it.
Yeah, I got credit for it and all that stuff, but... So what else happened? Oh, yes. And of course, I took my first steps into Mordor. And this is where I was talking about on the scaling of the thing is naturally one of the things I do in order to see how much they changed the enemies in general over the levels was to run a few skirmishes.
Of course.
And if you run a 106 skirmish, all of the mobs in the skirmish are exactly twice the morale as they were when running it at 105.
Wow. That's kind of unbelievable, actually.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, so I was a little bit surprised when I saw that, but yes.
I wonder if they're going to change that.
Well, that I don't know, but at 107, it was a more sane value. In other words, it was only about
Is it like a gear thing then?
106.
Like they expect you at 106 to have so much better gear or whatever?
Well, that's the problem is at 106, you're unlikely to have the good gear yet. You're probably not going to have a couple of levels.
That's why I'm surprised.
Yeah, it is really curious.
But it does make landscape a little bit challenging then until you start to get that good gear.
No kidding.
But you do have decent landscape drops because I got a few things that were significant improvements with that.
Did you figure out how to use that sword thingy to make the ash?
Oh, the ash thing? I have, except for that tutorial that we did.
Right.
Not a single item. Well, I clicked when I tried to do it, but it kept on saying you cannot.
I wonder if maybe they just haven't done that piece of
actually, there is one possibility, and that is that it could only be done to something that's not bound to you, because every item I tried it with was something that was, I should say, that you could only do it after binding it or something like that. I guess I could test that.
I tried it on a bunch. And I also tried right clicking and left clicking and all kinds of stuff, and it still wasn't really doing it. But maybe that's it. Maybe it's like if it's bound.
Yeah, because whenever I do it on something, it says cannot be used on this target, and this is a item level 300 item, so it's something that dropped in Mordor. So anyway, I don't know whether it's bugged or if
they just don't have it in place yet.
They don't have it in place, or if there's certain quality of items that you need in order to use it. I don't know what the situation is yet.
But the idea is, by the way, if people don't know what we're talking about, I think it's actually kind of a good idea that they have this setup where you have this special thing in your inventory that when you get weapon drops, or I guess equipment drops in general, and they're not your class or whatever, you can actually convert them into what they call Ash of Gorgoroth. And the Ash of Gorgoroth actually turns into a barter item. And then you collect enough of those, and then you can trade that in for equipment that you do want. So, I mean, I like it, especially if we're able to use it on stuff that's not for our own class, you know, so it's like, great. So like all this stuff that drops that I normally sell to vendors, I can actually convert and then get something that I actually do want. But we weren't really able to figure out how to make it work yesterday. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. That's right on that matter. Then I also finally got around to starting my rereading of The Lord of the Rings. And because of that, I was finally able to watch the first 3 episodes of Professor Olson's lecture series.
Well, it didn't even take you through chapter 1.
Right. So I've seen the first thing. So I read chapter 1 and got through the first 3 lectures on that matter. But one other little thing is related to something like Maven was saying, because you said that you recently got the score.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I just recently got a new car, which now has Bluetooth because my previous car was before that stuff was around.
Had an 8-track, right?
No, not quite that old. But, okay, my new car is Bluetooth, so it's talking much. So first time I go in there, I was wondering, okay, I didn't realize it suddenly is picking up all the music from my phone. And just about the only music I had on the phone was the soundtrack to LOTRO. It had the original soundtrack, so I got music coming from the original game, from Lothlorien,
Wow.
from Moria, and now it's going through the stuff from Rohan. And it had a couple of joke parts that were done by Anding apparently also in there. I don't know how that got on my phone, but it's like, for example, it says, that's right, there was also one that says, it said, this is Piney Needles reminding you to skirmish responsibly, and you're listening to A Casual Stroll to Mordor.
Oh, wow.
An old one. So, yeah. So I'm learning what music I have on my phone because I don't think I've listened to any music on my phone for such a long time.
Wow.
Right. Now, Fifi, do you have any items anything else you wish to discuss?
Other than, please buy my book.
There you go.
I guess that's a good way to put it.
I mean, I'm sold. Where can I get this book?
It's available, there's a store page on my website, realelvish.net, which has links to the various places that you can find it. You can find it on Lulu, you can find it on Amazon, and you can find it on Barnes & Noble. And there'll be more places coming up soon as the distribution, ripples outwards. But that takes a few months. So those are the main places you can find it. The way the textbook is set up is it is a companion with the Real Elvish Academy. So I run online courses that are free on Real Elvish Academy on Sindarin, and they use this textbook.
All right, that's good. And Brannick, do you have anything you wish to plug?
Well, before I talk about me, I'm actually looking at realelvish.net right now, and I'm looking at the post where the book was released, and it says something about it's in EPUB format, and it's gonna be on Kindle in the future and whatnot. Is it already available in Mobi format, or is that still in the works?
It's already available in EPUB format on Lulu.
What about other formats, like the Mobi format for Kindle?
Kindle also does EPUBs, I think. Actually.
I mean, it does, but like it's not like the default format for it. It's like MOBI. I call it Mobi. I don't know. But I'm just curious if that was in the works or not.
I could look into that. But I converted it into an ebook, into an EPUB, which was a really interesting process. It involved like ripping out all of the beautiful formatting that we'd put into the book.
I see it. That's the first thing you say in the post is, it was kind of sad ripping out all the nice formatting.
Yeah, because we spent like 3 months just going through the book, finding every little like error in or change in the font, and making certain that the tables like all ended up on the correct same page and weren't split and things like that. So it was kind of sad to take all that stuff out.
Gotcha. You have physical books too, like on Lulu. And
Yeah.
Art. Did you say it was coming to other places too, or like the physical book?
Yeah, you can get the physical book on Lulu, Amazon, CreateSpace. CreateSpace is a subset of Amazon. And you can also find it on Barnes & Noble. And that's the paperback and the hardcover.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Right. I decided to order the paperback in the end because it was sometimes when a language book or language, I think it's a lot easier sometimes to work with it as a physical book rather than. I find it easier to read a novel from an ebook, but sometimes textbooks I think are a little bit easier on the.
Yeah. The reason that I did this whole book actually was because people kept asking me for a physical book version, because just going through it on the website was, it's harder to read, I think, for a lot of people. So I made it a book version, and it's got like all these exercises in it, and the answers are in the back so that you can study just on your own with nothing but the book, or you can go to the Real Elvish Academy website and get to practice with a teacher looking over your shoulder.
All right, very cool. I'm going to have to pick that up.
Sweet. Yeah, please do.
So finally, if you were asking if I wanted to promote anything or something, I don't remember your exact words, I'm sorry. I guess the only thing I really have to promote at the moment is that I have still, when I have had free time, I'm still working on the as yet unannounced game that I'm developing for Clandestine Games. It is really close enough, like I could totally announce it right now. The only problem is I don't have a title for the game yet.
Oops.
And it's kind of weird to announce a new game that's in development without announcing the title of the game that's in development. But, I mean, if you're interested in the type of game that I'm making, I'm basically making a kind of a tycoon game where you are managing a like a video arcade in the 80s and 90s, sort of both the golden and silver age of video arcades. And I'm putting a lot of like historical simulation stuff in it too, so it's real games, real release dates, and hopefully it'll have a lot of sort of like actual, I don't know, video game trivia stuff in it, which some people like, some people don't. But it is one thing I'm sort of known for is my interest in that stuff. So I'm putting a lot of work into it, and it's still early. It's still, in development, not even close to alpha yet. But if you are interested, you can still join the QA team. I'm still looking for more people. Just clandestine-games.com. If you go on the forums there's a post. And if that sounds like something you'd be interested in checking out and providing feedback on, I'd be more than happy to listen to your feedback, and hopefully you can help me make the best game I possibly can at the moment.
All right, thank you. We currently have 22 supporters on Patreon, and if you'd like to join this illustrious rate of players and help support LOTRO players, simply go to the donations page where you can support the Players Alliance on Patreon. There you'll find rewards, including a mention on the podcast of your choice, or even be a guest with us for an episode of LOTRO Players News. This week we have a featured comment from Barnabas, who left a comment on last week's episode. Something not answered with the new player question of the week is keyboard turning versus mouse turning. When someone says they use a keyboard, does that mean that they move with the mouse or with the keyboard as well?
We did sort of touch on this a little bit last week, because I know I mentioned I do everything with the keyboard, including moving and turning and looking around.
See, the reason that I'm not a clicker and the reason that I use my keyboard for all of my skills is because my mouse is always in use to look around and move. You know, I always either have my left or my right mouse button down. My right mouse button if I'm turning, my left mouse button if not, so I can just look around. But my right hand is always occupied, so my left hand fires off the skills.
Interesting, because I use the mouse to turn and the keyboard to move. And of course I tend to be a clicker. So therefore, I don't tend to move, and I don't do much maneuvering around and turning around while I'm in combat then. In fact,
but, that's the best time to, like, get screenshots is, hold down the left mouse button, look around while you're stationary, and just, like, get those great shots of, like, combat.
Well, if I'm doing a screenshot in combat, then I'm not trying to click skills at the same time.
But you can do both.
Well... Right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail the episode.
Yes. We did not receive any emails this week, but if you'd like to send us one, you could send it to podcast@LOTROplayers.com. You could also follow us on Twitter, the Players Alliance @PlayersAlly, LOTRO Players @LOTRO Players, Ariendis @Ariendis, Forte @Forte_Maestro, Maven @Token Maven, Pineleaf @Pineleaf Needles, Sanswinda @Sanswinda, and Terry Adwin @Terry Adwin. You could also follow our guests, Brannick @BD Marvel, and Dreaming Fifi @RealElvish.net. Also at academy.realelvish.net, patreon.com/realelvish, facebook.com/dreamingfifi, and YouTube @dreamingfifi. The Players Alliance has 4 live shows every Monday at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. We have DDO Players News on the first and third Friday of each month at 11 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. We have XP Quest, though last I heard that is on a little bit of a hiatus at the moment. On the last Friday of each month at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have LOTRO Academy After School. And every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have LOTRO Players News. You join us for our live shows at LOTROplayers.com/live. And that is all for tonight. This is Pineleaf Mules reminding you to skirmish responsibly.